Welcome back to the Rebels Edge. Welcome back to me, I guess, because I've been missing 2 out of the 4 days this week, Pete. But we are going to be talking about the peace deal being struck for the Middle East, why exactly China is in the news again, and it's not tariffs this time, and a lot of sports. We've got all that and more on today's Rebels Edge. Bang.
And we're off. I'll tell you what, been a big week, right? I mean, this has been an incredible week, especially after the shutdown and everything else. I mean, I think that the markets actually have performed pretty daggone nice, all things considered, right?
Yeah, heck yeah. And apologies for not being able to make it a couple days this week, Pete. When I was in D.C. and in New York, I was at the Armenian embassy, folks, in D.C. and getting my citizenship. And maybe some more surprise stuff coming your way from there as well. But let's dive right into the markets, Pete.
Yep.
And I mentioned the peace accord that the president, again, I'm sure people will find ways to hate on him anyway, but he's the only guy that's been able to even try to stop these wars. And apparently Israel and Hamas, the ruling group over there in Gaza, have struck some sort of accord to release the hostages and so forth, Pete. Hostages that have been there 2 years and a couple days already. So that's good news. The markets reacted to it by rallying yesterday. They gave back 0.25% so far today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just looking, John, at, of course, we talk about the government shutdown for all the right reasons. I mean, that's a pretty big topic when you're talking about the macro picture. On top of that, I think getting a little peek at the Fed from yesterday, we got to see that it sure looks like we've got a couple of cuts coming in front of us. And we kind of felt pretty strong about that already, right? Those two, because of the Fed tool, which has been giving us virtually 100 for the one and then 88% for the December. I mean, it's been giving us some pretty good information, I think, already. But I think that's a biggie to get that confirmed. The fact that the Fed is leaning towards that way and more rate cuts. So that's something I think for the markets as well.
And at least half of the Fed, Pete, half of the Fed, according to the insider at the Fed, and this is on CNBC and other websites. It's not just me saying, "Oh, I saw this on Twitter." Half of the Fed is already saying, "Yep, 2 cuts." And if you guys are going against us, we're going public with it. So that's an interesting way to look at it. How about this, Pete? Silver. Silver is indeed, and by the way, we are going to have a vote today, supposedly the 7th vote. In all likelihood, it will result in the same thing. It won't pass the CR, continuing resolution. But it's the Democrats in the Senate that are going to block it yet again, Pete, and then try to claim the Republicans blocked it. I don't think that's going to sell. But anyway, silver is reacting still, and it was up as much as just shy of 2% today, Pete. That close to $50 a troy ounce, and then it pulled back. So I'm going to say silver is my fantastic future today. And you know what, Pete? We even had unusual just yesterday.
We did.
We've had multiple unusuals, folks, but we've had unusual activity in the SLV. Just yesterday, I did it on 3 at 3. So all you guys that are subscribers, fantastic. SLV 44.76 yesterday. It went a little higher than what you see on your screen there, but it's up 58% year to date, Pete.
Not so bad. Not too bad. Well, I've got a trifecta for you. I've got crude oil, which remains really, really low, right? I mean, we were pushing towards $50+ on crude just a few days ago. Here we are basically kind of hovering around 62, a little bit above 62, 62.30 or something like that. But that, again, is that range that we've been looking at, and we've been watching that since about mid-August is where that's been, and it's been pulling down and pulling down and pulling down. Then, of course, you got the volatility index where we do get up and over 17 every once in a while, and then we pull right back. And that's exactly what's happened once again. So we are still in that very tight range of 15, 16, call it on the VIX. Lastly, John, you said silver. I'm going to say gold. In 1 month, we've gone from 3,600 to 40, almost 4,100. And so pretty amazing moves that we are seeing so far. Today, a little bit of a pullback makes some sense. You get some moves to the upside out of gold, and then a little bit of a pullback, and then it just kind of retraces and goes back up once again, a little bit higher. So interesting to see that. Last I looked, gold was down about 1%. You know what? Things are going to shift around a little bit, but silver and gold, you hit that silver, and I'll tell you, gold's been absolutely amazing. And GLD call buying never seems to stop. They just keep on buying.
Yeah. And Pete, the other thing is that the GDXJ, that's GDX, put a J at the end, that's the junior miners, 111% on the year. So you would think they had AI in the name or something like that, Pete. You know, maybe it's going to be GDXJ AI pretty soon, because they are just, and Ray Dalio said, bye, 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 you know. So I guess people listen when Ray talks. All right. You know who else they listen to, Pete? Mark Lepresti. Because last week when Pete had to take a day off, Mark Lepresti and I were on the show, and we're going to show you a little video just as proof, time-stamped, that he was talking about quantum emotion. Now, quantum emotion, Pete, they're in a obviously hot sector, quantum, and it's a lot of different things, quantum is. But one of the things that these guys announced was a quantum random generated wallet for cryptocurrencies and so forth. And when you look at the potential for that, basically an unhackable wallet, Pete, because other people worry, well, with quantum, maybe people are going to be able to get my Bitcoin or this or that. Well, a quantum wallet seems like a nice solution for that. And Quantum Emotion is the company that has that. So let's take a look.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. Yes, and today's Small Cap Spotlight, we're going to feature a company that is a real promising up-and-comer in the quantum space. All of the rebels and people that watch this show know we've been super hot and bullish on quantum for a while now. That's actually our next research report, which is going to be published in a couple of weeks, is going to be focused on the quantum sector. Many folks that have listened to us in our various broadcasts and in real life events have done really, really well on some of our best quantum names like D-Wave, Rigatoni, Rigetti, of course, I love to call it Rigatoni. People have experienced explosive gains on names like that. Well, here's one you haven't heard of yet, folks, but you should keep on your radar. It's called Quantum Emotion. This company is focused on using QRNG, quantum random number generation technology, for true quantum-based cybersecurity. And John, really, this is an interesting one. Most folks don't know this. But when you create a password for your iPhone or your Netflix account or your Robinhood account, no matter what password you create, it is not truly random, and for that reason can be hacked. True randomness occurs only in nature and in quantum mechanics. Well, this company takes those theories, those applications from nature, from quantum mechanics and the randomness of the natural world to create quantum random number generated solutions for cybersecurity and other things. And they recently announced, I believe it was Thursday of last week, the first functioning quantum random number generating hot wallet for crypto. So you can think about the myriad of other applications coming out with this company. Quantum threats, the president has gotten behind this, recognizing that quantum represents an existential threat to U.S. cybersecurity. I expect we're going to see more government involvement, maybe even investment like we've seen in critical minerals. This is a company that's on our radar, folks. As always, we have to tell you, we do have a position in this name. This is a paid endorsement. We are advisors to this company. Do your own due diligence before investing. As always, that's Quantum Motion. Check it out.
Yeah, that Quantum Emotion, Pete, it was only up, and we do work with them, and it is a paid partnership with us. We also own shares. Always want to disclose that. But Quantum Emotion, Pete, it was up 46% this morning from when Mark talked about it last Thursday. That's pretty good. All right, let's talk about Ferrari. A lot of things great about Ferrari, of course. We
Mhm.
all love, well, maybe all of us love the cars. I wouldn't ever drive one down here, Pete. Too many potholes, just like New York. If you drove a Ferrari down here, you'd be breaking the tie rods, you'd be breaking probably the rims and everything else. But they're beautiful cars. They're really rolling sculpture. Well, Ferrari, symbol RACE, RACE, is moving to the downside today because they adjusted their electric vehicle production target from 40% of all vehicles to 20%. And they also said, you know what, we're probably not going to make as much money going forward, even though the cars like the one that Jared showed you guys is a $3.8 million vehicle. Hard to believe they're not going to meet their earnings projections when they're selling, basically F1 race cars for $3.8 million. And by the way, a real F1, folks, will cost you north of $11 million. But this is a beautiful car. What do you think of race, Pete? Would you buy it on this dip of 12% today?
I think it's a consideration for sure, John. I mean, you're getting a heck of a lot closer to the 52-week lows. Yes, they're not going to have as much of the production in terms of percentage. They're dropping it down, like you just mentioned, from 40% to 20%. But I'll tell you what, they still are going to have the hybrids. They're still going to have the ICEs. You're going to get less of the EVs. I think this is probably an opportunity when you look at the stock and how much it's been pushed down to these levels. It's not all just today, let's be honest, but down 12, 13% today certainly I think gives you a discount. Maybe that $3.8 million car that you're eyeing up, maybe you can throw a few dollars in your pocket if you come down here and start thinking about looking to the upside, because I do think that there's still an ability for this stock to maybe turn around and maybe not go up there all the way to where it was at the 52-week highs, just a little bit over north of 500, but maybe at least a little bit closer than they are right now, John, because I don't think that the news stories that we got today were enough to really punish the stock as much as it's probably been hit already.
Well, down 15% today, I would agree with my brother. I think that is, it's down from July 25th, Pete, it was 519 a share. So here at 407, would I be willing to put on an option trade? I would. I still wouldn't buy the stock. Shoot, 1,000 shares is $400,000. But that's why there are options, folks, because it's not an option to just trade stock anymore.
I've heard that somewhere.
Somewhere. All right. Let's dive in, Pete, to AKRO or AKRO. AKRO is the stock symbol, so that's why I call it AKRO, but it's AKRO Therapeutics. Company's going to be bought apparently by Novo Nordisk, Pete, NVO. The folks that are famous right now for that GLP-1 drug that they have just incredible demand for, but they're meeting the demand, and that's why they've gone back and forth with the likes of Hims and others that have made and sold generic versions of theirs. But shareholders are going to get $54 a share in cash, Pete, and that certainly lit a fire under the stock in the pre-market.
It did, and I'll tell you who's not feeling too good is there was a pretty substantial amount of shorts in this one, John. When I was taking a look, it was north of 11%. So yeah, that's a bit of a pain for these guys, and maybe that was part of the reason why when I was watching the stocks make some of the moves that it had made, it actually even spiked up above that level for a moment or two. You never really know where it's going to go, and things can change, and maybe the numbers get moved around. But I'll tell you what, just an amazing acquisition, I think, for Novo Nordisk. They're doing it in all cash, John. $5.2 billion. We've had so many of these this year. It's been absolutely incredible. We talk about it all the time. I didn't get a chance to take a look at who are the banks behind it, but we always know that there is a select group of banks that probably are most likely going to be there. And that's why I keep looking as we got the earnings coming up in front of us, just days away, literally. I think that when you look at the investment banking side of things, it's going to be strong. It is going to be really, really strong. That doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect and it's going to be the dominant factor in what's going on in the financial industry. But I think there's enough good things going on there. That's why we've seen the financials perform the way they have, whether it's Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or Bank of America or Citigroup or, take your pick. I think that the financials, John, have been in a sweet spot for quite some time. And I think this is just another example of it. When we look at this up, we'll have to find out exactly who some of those banks were, but for now, we probably have a pretty good idea.
I think you do. I think we both do. Jamie Dimon. Let's take a look, Pete, at Delta, because it is soaring. And yes, the pun is intended. It is soaring today because they delivered stronger than expected Q3 EPS. And it's up, I think, 35% in the last 6 months, Pete. It's approaching the year high, which was back in January, $67 or something like that. It got to 62 today, 62 and change, and then pulled back. But wow, these are pretty good earnings indeed, Pete. And you got to think that crude oil, which we cite all the time, is pretty flat at 63, 64 a share to the barrel. That's good for these guys because fuel is their biggest expense.
Yep, we've talked about that all the time, and the fact that we are almost into the 50s, John. I mean, think about that, especially if some of these airlines, not all of them, but some of them actually buy ahead, right? So they try to lock in some of these numbers sometimes if they can. So depending on how that went, that could be another positive. But I'll tell you what, when you have earnings that crushed the way they did, John, $1.71, they were looking for $1.52. That's a pretty big beat, and you have to be pretty amazed to see that happen. We had UOA not in Delta, but just yesterday
we did
in
have
United Airlines. So what's that?
We did have it in Delta too, I believe.
Oh,
Pete.
fantastic.
Take a look at this one, folks. Delta, we had on the 25th of September, it was 57.50. As I said, it went to 62.50 almost today, nearly a $5 jump. Somebody bought 7,200 of the Halloween October 60s, Pete. So that's a nice little pop, even though it's pulled back. That was a nice little pop this morning.
And we've had option paper in jets. We had some, like I say, yesterday in United Airlines. So, and we started to see a little bit coming into Southwest as well. So that has been something. As a matter of fact, that ETF has been pretty aggressively bought. It seems like on a fairly consistent basis. It seems like they're doing something very right. When you look at the full year, John, that they put out there, they're talking about earnings of about $6 a share. Pretty impressive. And then you look at the free cash flow that they talked about, $3.5 billion to $4 billion. Things are going well in the airline industry. And I can tell you, from my perspective, being in Delta, a Delta guy and flying a lot, not nearly like you do, John, but flying a lot, every single time it's been packed. Every single one of them that I've been in. Matter of fact, just the other day, I was flying back from Los Angeles. They were starting to have pay people $500 to go on the next flight that goes out, whoever wants to take off and do that. So I would say that the industry itself is doing pretty well, and Delta is one of them that's doing just as well as the industry. And you look at the revenue that they did, up 4% year over year. The numbers were all great, and that's what you want to see, and that's why that stock is up, was up pretty nice this morning at least.
Yeah, still up, but it was up really nice this morning. All right, let's hit Albemarle, Pete, because ALB, but I mean, you could plug in a lot of different stocks here. We've talked about, critical minerals. We've talked about Lithium America and so forth. And I'm sure it was a discussion with President Trump and Mr. Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, when they were meeting yesterday, these critical minerals. Well, China has basically thrown down the gauntlet, Pete, and I'll read this. It says, China to impose export controls on super hard materials and lithium batteries, also imposes export controls on graphite materials for heavy batteries and all the heavy magnets rather, and all the rest. You remember, Pete, when Apple said we've got to secure this for the magnets that we need in our devices? Well, there's a lot of stocks reacting positively to this, but you can bet that the president and the Defense Department and a lot of the people that use lithium are thinking, here's some China games that they're playing right now.
Absolutely. And, ALB is up 7% or something close to that. The shorts in there, John, were pretty extraordinary too. You're talking 14 to 18%. That's a bit of a squeeze. So you're looking at these medium and the heavy rare earths. And as you mentioned, lithium and graphite, I mean, across the board, these super hard materials and so forth. It makes for a pretty interesting back and forth, I think. I think the president's going to be keeping a very close eye on how things go and how China wants to react over the next weeks and months to come in front of us. But interesting to see. good for those that are in those different stocks that we're talking about, especially when you look like an ALB or something like this, a nice move to the upside. But this could be an interesting spot to keep a very close eye on when you're talking about some of these rare earths. I mean, we've talked about them a lot. I think we're going to start hearing a lot more in the future.
Well, it was 50 when you saw that graph that Jared had on there, 50 back in May, Pete. It almost touched 100 today, might have touched 100. I know it was 99, but that's a double. Pretty much that's a double. And so keep an eye on that. All right, now we've got one of Pete's favorite, the creamsicles, and one Baker Mayfield. And so we always like to show you guys videos and so forth. And today we've got an interesting one of somebody talking about Baker. And there's a fair amount of mature content in this one, Pete. There's Baker.
If you're okay with some swearing, it's all right.
You know what, Pete? He walked on at Texas Tech, transfers to Oklahoma, wins the Heisman, is the #1 overall pick in the draft, and yet people were hating on him.
Cleveland,
and, there's a guy that's not hating on him. Baker MFing Mayfield.
You know, John, we were talking about this kind of thing yesterday too. We were talking about how are these guys busts, and the or is very important, or are they going to teams in the NFL that are so bad that they were the worst team last year, so they have the first pick this year? I mean, that's a big part of this whole thing. So by getting a quarterback, that's great. You get a guy who's really fantastic. You know, he can run, he can do this, he can throw the ball 1,000,000 miles and all this different stuff. But the reality is, what do you have around him, right? I mean, and that's the biggest problem. And that's where these general managers, I think, are fools because of how they decide to draft. I think that the guys that are smarter are the guys that understand, hey, we got to build something up, and then we can plug and play whoever is going to be the quarterback, because the quarterback, as important as it is, he can only do so much if he doesn't have an offensive line, John. If he doesn't have receivers, if they don't have any kind of a running game, it makes it a lot different. And Baker Mayfield has literally been surging like nobody I've seen. You know, when you go back the last couple of years and you take a look at some of his statistics, you just look at it and go, wait a minute, this guy kind of looks like he might be as good or better than Patrick Mahomes by the numbers, I'm saying. I'm not saying, you know, anything further than that, but he has done everything that Tampa ever would have wanted. He bounced around a little bit to multiple teams after Cleveland basically said he's not the right guy. And I'll tell you what, John, right now in the NFL, he has got to be one of the hottest players and quarterbacks in the NFL in what he's been able to do, how he's been able to do it. He's got 10 touchdowns. He's only got 1 interception. I mean, for a guy who's throwing the ball around a lot, and he's got 1,200 yards so far this year in the 5 games that they've played. And by the way, I think that is the game of the week, actually. I think it's going to be really fun to see the 49ers play with the Buccaneers. They're both 4-1. And now it's a matter of, all right, well, who can step up? Now, Purdy's probably not going to play, so that's something they're missing. But you know what? That San Francisco team is so good with all the injuries they've got. They still are a 4-1 football team. So I think they're going to put up a pretty good fight. And I think that's the best NFL game of the weekend.
Well, I'll run some stats for you real quick, Pete. Offensive stats. You got to give the edge to the 49ers, even though Baker Mayfield's done a fabulous job, like Pete said. Yeah. Passing yards, 1,400 to 1,200. Passing TDs. Versus interceptions, 10 TDs for San Francisco, 5 interceptions. Like Pete just said, only 1 interception with the same number of touchdowns for the Bucs. Rushing yards goes to the Bucs, 552 to 426. Rushing TDs, 0 for the Niners, Pete. 0, 32nd in the league. Tampa Bay, 3, tied for 12th. First downs, 115 for San Francisco, 100 for the Bucs. So it's a pretty good matchup. I'm not saying that you got to just go by the stats there, but they're pretty close in a lot of categories. So Pete's right. This should be a great game. I'll be tuned in, Pete.
Yeah, the dreamsicles or creamsicles or whatever you want to call them, they're fantastic. And people are just really going crazy over that. They really are. They think it's the greatest thing ever. I happen to agree with them. I mean, being a former Buck, what can I say? I love them. That's what we wore. It was cool. All right, John, college football real quick. It's fun. I think there are 3 really important games this week because at some point in time, you start to have to separate, right? The winners from the losers. Well, Ohio State's number 1 in the country. Illinois is number 17 in the country. Now, Illinois had that bad game that they had where they got smoked by Indiana. But good football team, well-coached football team. Their quarterback, John Altmaier, 12 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. This could be an interesting game as long as Illinois can hang around, maybe get a turnover here, get a break there. It could be a pretty fun game, and it's at Illinois. So I think that one's really interesting. I think the Bama and Mizzou. Bama's number 8. Missouri's number 14. Missouri's got a running back, John, this kid Hardy, who's averaging 7 yards a carry. I'll tell you what, if he can do that against Alabama, and Missouri's this sleeper school that nobody ever gives them any credit for much of anything, right? I mean, they're number 14 in the country, so there's a lot of folks out there who understand that they're a pretty damn good football team. But outside of that, I would say that most of the public would say, I don't even know. Are they still in the Big 12 or where are they? You know, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. And the other thing, Ty Simpson, this quarterback that was so great getting recruited, and in game 1, he was a little bit nervous. I don't know why. He's probably only in front of 100,000 people in Alabama or whatever, but 13 touchdowns with 1 interception so far. And he's a guy, as a freshman, I think at some point you got to start saying, hey, is this guy maybe Heisman material? I know he's a freshman, but I mean, if they're winning and he's leading them on those wins, his name's probably going to start coming up. The third game is Indiana playing at Oregon. That's going to be fun. 2 5-0 football teams, both in the Big Ten. Dante Moore, the quarterback for Oregon, is outstanding. He's a guy that people are talking about for the Heisman. How about the Cal transfer, though, John? Fernando Mendoza. This guy has got 1,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Transferred from Cal. Cal doesn't have him. They've got a very good quarterback, so it's not like they took a huge step down, but Mendoza's playing at a new level. And I think a lot of that has to do with Indiana, the coach, and everything that goes with that. That's going to be a really fun game. I don't know. If you only could have one game to watch, which one? Who do you pick? Illinois against Ohio State? Do you pick Bama, Missouri, or do you go Indiana against Oregon? I mean, that's a tough pick right there.
Indiana, Oregon is the one I'd watch because that should be close.
Yeah.
Ohio State is going to crush Illinois, Pete. So I would take that bet. The game I'm really psyched about is the Red River shootout or whatever they call it down there, where they don't even play at each other's stadiums because it's so vicious. It's Oklahoma, Texas, folks. Now, Oklahoma this year is 5-0. Texas, 3-2. And Arch Manning has been shown to not be what we were sold on as far as in the preseason. And now you know why he didn't start last year when Quinn Ewers was there. Everybody kept saying, where's Arch? Where's Arch? Well, that's what they're saying this year too, Pete. Where's Arch? Where's Arch? Well, Oklahoma, if it weren't for this rivalry game, because those are always different, you know, it's like, you know, when Georgia plays Georgia Tech or Bama plays Auburn or whatever, or Georgia, you know, rivalry games like that, Cal, Stanford, you got to kind of throw the record book out. But based on what I've seen, Oklahoma should crush them. And I don't know how all of a sudden they get on track down at Texas. I really don't. I love the coach, Pete, an Armenian brother, you know, right there in the heart. But, man, this is a tough one for him. And they were, you know, top 5. They were either number 1 or 2 when they played Ohio State. And they haven't looked like a top 30 team, let alone a top team. So that's the game I want to watch. Oklahoma, Texas. Oklahoma's 6th. Texas has no ranking anymore.
The only problem with that game right now is the quarterback who's so damn good at Oklahoma, who transferred from Washington State of all places, is hurt. And whether or not he can play could make a huge difference in that game. And by the way, I did see this, and I can't remember if it was on that video or not, John, but is Oklahoma the new quarterback U or what? If you take a look and see the quarterbacks in the NFL right now, Oklahoma, 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 Oklahoma. I mean, they have figured the game out really quickly, and they obviously analyze talent as good as anybody because everybody's got these high-ranked guys and everything else, and Oklahoma grabs some of those high guys, some of the other guys. That it's unbelievable what they've been able to do.
Yep, I agree. Caleb Williams, as you know, started there and then went to USC and all that stuff, followed his coach. Well, thanks, folks. We got to go, but we will be back Monday. You can check out all of our offerings at marketrebellion.com/get started. And Pete and I will be started again on Tuesday because Monday's Columbus Day, right, Pete? Monday's Columbus Day, or I don't know what they call it elsewhere, but a lot of us still call it Columbus Day. Put your comments in on what you call it, but I think we're not back till Tuesday, Pete.
Keep it clean.
See you from Armenia on Tuesday. Bang.